I've always prided myself on being level-headed, the kind of person who keeps their cool when things go sideways. But that night, driving through the mountains with nothing but a fog line to guide me, I felt the icy fingers of panic claw at my insides, and all my composure slipped away like the mist outside my windows. The rain had started as a drizzle when I left the cozy warmth of the cabin retreat, an impromptu getaway meant to clear my head. But as I wound my way down the mountain, the drizzle turned into a downpour, and a thick fog rolled in, smothering the landscape in a blanket of white. My headlights barely cut through the gloom, the road ahead a murky abyss that seemed to swallow the light whole. I leaned forward, squinting to keep the painted fog line in sight. That thin strip of yellow was the only thing keeping me from veering off into the unknown. Every so often, water sloshed against the undercarriage of my car, a stark reminder of the precariousness of my situation. It was then that I saw the first silhouette, a vague shape that emerged from the fog, only to disappear as quickly as it came. I chalked it up to my imagination, too many late-night horror flicks playing tricks on my mind. But then I saw another and another, each one more defined than the last, a procession of phantoms that seemed to be watching me from the veil of mist. My heart thumped erratically in my chest, a frantic rhythm that matched the wipers struggling against the relentless rain. I thought of the movie Jeepers Creepers, of that feeling of being hunted, and a shiver ran down my spine. I couldn't shake the image of the creature from the film, its relentless pursuit, and I found myself checking the rearview mirror compulsively. The silhouettes grew bolder, closer, no longer content to flit at the edge of visibility. They were human-shaped but wrong, elongated and distorted, as if the fog had stretched and twisted them into something grotesque. One stepped onto the road, so close I could almost make out the features of its face, or where a face should have been. I swerved instinctively, the tires skidding on the wet asphalt, my breath hitching in my throat. I had to make a decision. The fog line was my lifeline, but whatever was out there in the fog seemed drawn to me, to my fear. If I turned around, would they follow? If I stopped, would they descend upon me? The road was treacherous, a single mistake away from disaster, but the unknown was even more terrifying. My palms were slick against the steering wheel, my knuckles white. I pressed the gas pedal, urging the car forward, trying to outrun the creeping dread that clung to me like the damp. The road snaked ahead, the fog line disappearing and reappearing in taunting glimpses. Then, without warning, the world tilted. My car lurched as the front wheel caught on something, a hidden ditch or a fallen branch concealed by the fog. I fought for control, the car fishtailing wildly, a scream tearing from my lips. When the car came to a shuddering halt, I was panting, my whole body trembling. I was alive, but the sense of relief was short-lived. The fog outside was alive with movement, the silhouettes closing in, a silent audience to my breakdown. I couldn't stay here. With a shaky breath, I restarted the car, the engine sputtering to life. I had to keep moving, keep following the fog line, my only guide in a world gone mad. As I drove, the shapes in the fog seemed to fall back, retreating into the depths of the night. Perhaps they were just figments of my imagination, conjured by the fear and the setting. Or perhaps they were something else, something as real as the fog line beneath my wheels. I didn't stop driving until I reached the valley, the fog dissipating as I descended, the oppressive atmosphere lifting like a bad dream at dawn. As I finally emerged from the clutches of the mountain's embrace, the fog reluctantly began to release its grip, retreating and thinning as I descended into the valley below. The world slowly returned to normalcy, the ghostly procession of silhouettes dissolving into the burgeoning light of a new day. Yet, even as the sun's rays pierced the remnants of the night's terror, a cold unease settled deep within me, coiling around my spine like a silent warning. I found no solace in the daylight. The memory of that drive clung to me more stubbornly than the dampness on my clothes. With each glance in the rearview mirror, I half expected to see those distorted figures trailing behind me, their presence a whisper away from reality. The fog line, once a beacon of safety, now felt like a mocking guide leading me through a gauntlet of unseen horrors. Even now, when the rain begins to fall and the world outside blurs into a watery tableau, I can't shake the sensation that something lingers just beyond the periphery of what my eyes can see. The storm had been on my tail since I left the city, as if the rolling thunder was chasing me down the highway, back to the sleepy town where I grew up. The night was pitch black except for the occasional flash of lightning that illuminated the road ahead. I was eager to get back to my parents' cozy house. The thought of my mom's cooking and the familiar creaks of the old wooden floors a comforting end to the long drive. My phone rang, cutting through the sound of the rain hammering against the car. I glanced at the screen. The words, "private number," lit up. Strange. I don't usually get calls from private numbers, but I figured it might be my parents since they were expecting me or a friend needing something. I answered, balancing the phone between my shoulder and ear. "Sarah." "It's me." It was my mom's voice. Her voice was a soft crackle over the line, tinged with static. "Where are you now, honey? Please tell me you're driving safely." "Hey, Mom, just a couple of hours away. The storm's pretty bad. You don't need to worry. I'm being careful. It's just really coming down out here." "Okay, just please be safe. I don't like you driving in this weather." "I will, Mom. See you soon." The call ended and an uneasy silence settled in the car, broken only by the rhythmic swipe of the wipers and the occasional distant rumble of thunder. I pushed the odd feeling away, attributing it to the storm and the isolation of the night drive. When I finally pulled into the driveway, the house was dark. No porch light to welcome me, no warm glow from the windows. A prickle of unease danced up my spine. They were expecting me. Why would the house be completely dark? I got out of the car, the rain instantly soaking through my clothes. I ran up to the front door, fumbling with my keys, the shadows around me pressing in close. Inside, I flicked the light switch. Nothing. The power was out. "Mom? Dad?" My voice felt small in the dark, empty house. No response. I pulled out my phone, using it as a makeshift flashlight as I made my way through the familiar yet now foreign-feeling rooms. Everything was eerily still, the silence amplifying the sound of my own breathing. A creeping dread settled over me. Something wasn't right. I checked my phone again, considering calling my parents, but a text message caught my eye. One from my mom, timestamped just an hour ago. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Drive safe, the weather's supposed to be terrible tonight." Tomorrow. Strange. Panic clawed at my chest. If they weren't expecting me tonight, then who called me? I quickly dialed my parents' number. The phone pressed to my ear as I paced the living room. It rang and rang, then finally voicemail. I tried to steady my breathing, to think rationally. I needed to check with the neighbors. I dashed across the street, the rain relentless. Mrs. Donnelly, the neighbor who'd known me since I was in diapers, answered the door. "Sarah, dear, what are you doing here? Your folks said they were going out of town." I felt my stomach drop. "They're not home." "No, honey. They left yesterday. Won't be back till next week. Didn't they tell you?" A chill ran through me, colder than the rain that drenched my skin. I thanked Mrs. Donnelly and hurried back across the street, my mind racing. The call from Mom, the voice had sounded just like her, but now it was clear it was an imposter, a lure. Back inside the house, I locked the door behind me, my heart pounding. The storm raged outside, a symphony to my fear. I was alone, isolated in a house that no longer felt like a sanctuary. The shadows seemed to move, just beyond the reach of my phone's light, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I barricaded myself in my old room, piling furniture against the door. I sat on the bed, hugging my knees, jumping at every creak and groan of the house. Whoever or whatever had called me wanted me here, alone, vulnerable. Hours passed, the storm never relenting. I didn't dare sleep, my eyes fixed on the faint outline of the door, expecting it to burst open at any moment. but nothing came. The night dragged on, a torturous crawl of time and terror. As the first light of dawn broke through the storm clouds, the house felt different, less menacing in the daylight. I ventured out of my room, the house quiet but for the sound of dripping water. The storm had passed, but the fear it brought lingered. I left the house as soon as the sun was fully up, not bothering to pack anything. I couldn't stay there, not with the echo of that false call still whispering through the rooms. I drove straight into town, to the local police station, my clothes still damp and my nerves frayed. I recounted everything to the officer on duty, the strange call, the dark house, the text from my mom that contradicted the voice on the phone. The officer took notes, his expression a mix of concern and skepticism. They would check the house, he assured me, and they would try to trace the call. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't lead to anything. Whoever had called me had covered their tracks too well. For days, I stayed at a friend's place, jumping at every sound, every ring of the phone. My parents cut their trip short, returning to a home that now felt violated. They were rattled by my story, by the danger I had been in, and by the inexplicable nature of it all. The police found no signs of forced entry, no fingerprints or footprints, nothing out of place. The call remained a mystery, untraceable and haunting. Life slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy, but the shadows of that night lingered. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of being chosen for some unknowable reason. I wondered if it had been a random act, a cruel prank, or if I had been targeted, and if so, why? The questions plagued me, the not knowing a constant weight. I struggled with the idea that someone out there could manipulate my reality so easily, could mimic my mother's voice and prey on my trust. The safety I once felt in my childhood home was shattered. Every creak of the floorboards, every flicker of a light bulb, sent a spike of fear through my heart. Months passed, and the incident became a chilling story to recount, though I never told it lightly. Each time I did, it was a reminder of the thin line between the mundane and the terrifying, of how quickly the familiar could become sinister. I never received another call like that, and no explanation ever surfaced. The incident remained a disturbing chapter in my life, a story without an ending. But the call from home, the one that wasn't really from home at all, echoed in my mind during every lonely night drive, a haunting melody of what could have been, and a chilling reminder that some things are beyond our understanding.